Welcome to Hannity. So President Trump, he fulfills yet another key campaign promise by moving forward with a plan to strengthen America's southern border and deport criminal illegal aliens. And that is tonight's opening monologue. The Department of Homeland Security Secretary General John Kelly announced earlier today new guidelines to implement President Trump's agenda on immigration. Now, they include prioritizing the removal of criminal aliens who have been convicted of any criminal offense, who have been charged with any criminal offense that has not yet been resolved, and who have committed potentially chargeable criminal acts. DHS is also calling for hiring an additional 10,000 ICE agents, 5,000 additional Border Patrol agents, expanding the 287G program, which allows local police to act as immigration agents, starting the planning and construction, of course, of the border wall, ending catch and release, and restoring the Secure Communities program, which was shut down by the Obama administration. Also, returning aliens to their country of origin, creating the Victims of Immigration Crime Engagement Office, or VOICE, which is meant to help families that are impacted by illegal immigrant crimes, also identifying aid to Mexico, and commissioning a study on border security to better determine what works and what does not work. Now, it's important to note that Dreamers are not impacted by these new orders, but you can guarantee that the liberals and their friends and the alt-left propaganda media, they're going to spin and distort what these guidelines are all about. But if you take a complete and honest and unbiased look at what President Trump is trying to do, then you'll see it's all pretty simple. He's securing our borders, trying to stop crimes against Americans, preventing drugs from entering this country, arms from entering this country. He wants to stop drug trafficking. You see there, I've personally been down to the border over a dozen times, on boat, all-terrain vehicle. I've been in helicopters. I've been on horseback. I have seen these drug warehouses. Look there, floor to ceiling, the biggest warehouse you've ever seen. I've seen drug tunnels and illegal immigrants being detained. I saw a gang member being arrested. And just a couple of weeks ago, one of our Hannity producers caught on video Border Patrol agents. See that? 400 pounds of drugs headed right into your community. Now, I'm speaking tonight from firsthand experience because, as far as I know, nobody else in the media has taken the time to go down to the border as much as I have and look up close and personally to what's really happening and how bad it is. Now, back in 2014, during one of my trips, I sat through a briefing. It was eye-opening. This was with former Texas Governor Rick Perry, where we were just told how bad illegal immigrant crimes were for the state of Texas alone. 642,000 crimes. Watch this.
Criminal aliens have been responsible for about 642,000 criminal offenses.
642,000 crimes in 7 years have an orchestra that we have brave men and women that are literally using military tactics to fight what they consider to be cartels. That is a huge story. 642,000 crimes against Texans alone in a 7-year period. Now, there are other statistics that are just as shocking. According to a 2015 report from the Immigration Policy Institute, get this, an estimated 820,000 of the projected 11 million illegal immigrants living in America are convicted criminals. And look at the numbers. In fiscal year 2015, 36.6% of the over 70,000 federal sentences were for crimes committed by illegal aliens. Now, these aren't just numbers that we're talking about here. These are people, your citizens, fellow citizens, Americans, directly impacted by illegal immigrant crimes. Now, there's also to add to this, the massive costs. You, the American taxpayer, are paying a fortune. According to a study from the Federal American Immigration Reform, illegal immigration, get this, costs states and local governments $113 billion a year for things like education, for medicine, medical treatment, public assistance, judicial costs, criminal justice costs, huge amounts of money. Then there's the cost to individual border states. Let's take a look at some of the numbers. For example, if you live in California, illegal immigration is estimated to cost an astounding $25.3 billion a year. If you live in the state of Texas, you're on the hook, if you're a taxpayer, for $12.1 billion annually. That is taxpayer money. That's supposed to go to your towns and communities, your hospitals, your educational facilities, but no. It's going to pay for illegal immigrants. The good news is this. President Trump, he's laid out a comprehensive plan to fix the problem, to make our communities safer, and to save you, the American taxpayer, obviously a fortune. Here with reaction, Fox News senior correspondent Geraldo Rivera. You're looking at those numbers. You're a great attorney. That's a very strong case that the cost to the average American is massive. We're paying a huge price.
Well, let me say that you've done a masterful job in assembling your facts and presenting a very compelling argument. And
but there's a but coming.
A very simple but, and let everybody know where I'm coming from. So far, you know, we saw the crackdown by ICE last week or two. And it was on every news programs, local programs, national programs. There you saw the ICE agents, heavily armored, escorting the undocumented immigrants from their community, 684 of them. We saw it every night on the news. Imagine that we have 10,990,000, whatever the math is, to go. So if we have been seeing this human trauma of 684 immigrants being rounded up and deported, imagine what it's going to be like when it's 10 million. It's going to convulse this country. It is really going to tear neighborhoods apart. And I think that in following through on the president's, I get it, it's his campaign promise, and I do not believe he would have been elected but for the immigration issue. I think that the country is in for a very rocky road.
What do we do? You've watched my programs when I did town halls, and mothers were on these programs, and their children were killed by illegal immigrants that had already been in the criminal justice system. That shouldn't. You love family, Geraldo. There's nobody that loves family more than you. If that were your son or daughter, I think you would be apoplectic and angry.
And that's why a rational, logical argument fails. I get that I have lost the argument for the hearts and minds of a majority of people in a majority of states, and that's why, as you know, I have withdrawn my objection to the wall being built. If people want to spend that kind of money for that wall, God bless, I know that you are sincerely motivated, and go out and do it.
A wall with a, well, in fairness, a wall with a door.
With a door, that's fine.
That's fine. Shut up, Hannity.
The situation, to argue objectively and coolly, is very difficult. Now, I've seen your statistics, your powerful statistics from your meeting. Incidentally, you looked a little younger, a little less gray. 2014.
You know, I love you too, Geraldo. Thanks a lot.
But I just saw the Cato Institute study in preparation for this appearance. These undocumented immigrants commit fewer crimes per capita than citizens do. You could argue that undocumented immigrants moving into a community makes it safer per capita than it was before they moved in. I know that those arguments fall on deaf ears. I know that there is an instinctive revulsion about people who are here without permission.
But for example, in fiscal year 2015, 36.6% of the over 70,000 federal sentences for crimes committed by illegals. Wait a minute, that does not jive with your statistics you just gave.
But you know what these crimes are, by and large? These aren't violent crimes like Katie Steinle. These are crimes where I want to work. I'm here without documentation. I get a fake Social Security card, a federal felony. I pay Social Security tax to this fake Social Security account. This is money I'm paying in that I have no chance of ever redeeming.
There's something that does happen. I'm not going to dispute that. But what do you, let's use Texas alone. I sat there in that security briefing. These were the salt of the earth law enforcement guys that put their lives on the line every day. In a 7-year period, 642,000 crimes. Now, some of them were small, a lot of them were drug related. But they also included murder. It also included rape. It also included a lot of other violent crimes. And I ask you, why are we taking this risk when we have an opportunity with a door to vet people before they come in and ask them to respect our law and sovereignty?
I think that we have to totally rethink the legal visas to people coming from areas like Mexico, where traditionally there has been an ebb and flow across that border that worked well for decades until 9/11, where we got the fear of terrorism. We really have to have a vastly improved legal immigration system.
But we have to secure it, and we have to vet, and we have to make sure you want to be
in Texas. You refer to Texas.
640.
What happens in the city of Austin? What happens in the city in Harris County, in Houston, Texas now, where the local authorities refuse to assist the feds?
It's simple. You know what? You know, for example, there was a guy killed, a criminal alien. Ever Valles is his name. He murdered a 32-year-old kid last week, Tim Cruz, in Denver, Colorado, and ICE had asked the Denver Police Department to alert them so they could deport him. He ended up getting out, and he killed this kid. That was last week.
But why didn't they get a specific warrant? This is my point. My point is that sanctuary cities and the litigation that will flow from sanctuary cities will be where the rubber meets the road, where the right and the left fight it out, where the red and the blue have this war. This will be the battleground.
I think you're right,
but I
think they're going to lose money. I think Donald Trump will cut off federal funds to those cities if they refuse to enforce federal law. And I think he has every right legally to do so.
I think that what should happen, I am delighted that he now has a Hispanic in his cabinet, Secretary of Labor.
If you weren't so hard on him, you'd be in his cabinet. And I would have loved that.
I want him to succeed.
I know you do.
And I understand that immigration really irks people.
You know
the way
something?
it's
You
done.
and I go out a lot, and we talk about our families and our backgrounds. And I don't want to speak, generally speaking, the Hispanic story in America is very similar to the Irish story.
It is totally.
The values are the same. The beliefs are the same. Hard work, all of these things, family. I mean, it's amazing how similar it is.
In your ethnic memory, and when you think back to the 19th century, how the Irish were treated.
Illegally.
How the Irish immigrants were treated.
Irish Catholic need not apply.
Horrifying.
I have a sign in my office.
Right, and exploited and all the rest of it.
But they did it legally.
But there were no immigration laws in the mid-19th
No, but they were all checked when they got to Ellis Island. Wait a minute. If they had disease, there were certain... We vetted to an extent. But we didn't live in the world of terrorism that we have today.
I think that the anvil of 9/11 has hit hardest on the Latino immigrants, ironically, even though the enemy is Islamic extremism.
I agree.
It's Juan and Maria, the apricot picker.
I'm pulling you over being on this show has been good for you. I'm bringing you over.
But you have an essential decency.
I love
that I appreciate, and I think that as long as you have that decency and respect,
Trump does too.
I agree, and that's why I argued. I was on the Today Show last Friday. I know your time is limited, but I was there and I said, this guy doesn't have a racist or evil bone in his body. You got to give him a chance. And
all right,
some of it is packaging, but
good friend.
Thanks,
Thank you, buddy.
I know that you want safe neighborhoods where the streets belong to families and communities, not gang members and drug dealers who are right now, as I speak, being thrown out of the country, and they will not be let back in. We will have strong borders again. We've taken historic action to secure the southern border, and I've ordered the construction of a great border wall, which will start very shortly.
That was President Trump taking his message directly to you, the American people, over the weekend, promising to secure our borders and make America's neighborhoods safe again. Earlier today, the Department of Homeland Security, they unveiled new immigration enforcement guidelines. By the way, not new laws, because the laws are already on the books. Joining us now, the editor-in-chief of LifeZette, Fox News contributor, radio talk show host, nationally syndicated, Laura Ingraham. People, I don't think, understand what conservatism means. Let me just give me a second to lay this out. Here's what I want for my fellow Americans. I want our borders and our country safe and secure from those who want to bring drugs and gangs and radical Islamic violence to our country. You know what? There's 13 million more Americans on food stamps. I want them to get off and have a job. 8 million more in poverty. I want the American dream for them. The 95 million Americans out of the labor force. The lowest home ownership rate in 51 years. And I like the economy to flourish so everybody can have a good life. Isn't that what it really comes down to, why we support these policies of President Trump? Isn't it that simple?
Yeah, I think being a conservative, Sean, requires that we want to conserve all that is good about America, our independence, our freedom, our belief in our Constitution, our traditions, our language, our sovereignty. We want to conserve. So we want to conserve the good stuff. And when we have a rampant gang culture fueled in part by illegal immigrants in the United States, not all illegal immigrants, but a shocking number just in Northern Virginia, where just a few days ago we had a mass arrest in Northern Virginia of 10 individuals, including illegal immigrants, who became part of what is MS-13. You've talked about it, one of the most vicious, violent gangs in the world, fueling the most savage violence in Northern Virginia. We got a big problem on our hands, and it's not about being heartless or cruel or mean. What Donald Trump is doing now as president is fulfilling his promise to do a better job at keeping Americans safe. It doesn't mean it's going to be 100% safe. It's never going to be that. But if we can save one life because we're enforcing our border and actually enforcing our laws, then that should actually turn everybody's heads around on this issue. So I applaud what he said. I was there at that rally in Melbourne with the president on Saturday. The reaction from the crowd, which I think was a lot more than 9,000 people, by the way, but it was a massive crowd, was just overwhelmingly positive. Some of it gets publicized, some of it doesn't, but it was a really positive reaction.
Why then are those on the left fighting the executive order on vetting? All it is vetting people from countries that have ties to terrorism. It's not a Muslim ban, vetting people with these ties, and building a border wall with a door. So, okay, to keep Americans safe. Why are people on the left so willing to gamble with other people's lives? I've interviewed far too many mothers who lost their children that were killed by illegal immigrants, as I was saying to Geraldo.
Well, I think for a lot of the activists, the real hardcore radical activists on the left, Sean, borders are a thing of the past. Borders are passé and antiquated devices and designs of a bunch of old dead white guys, the framers, who believed in a republic as something special and different, with a set of laws that uniquely invested us with an opportunity to pursue happiness and pursue our freedom and our own individual pursuits as Americans, that America was special. So a lot of these folks truly do not believe America is exceptional.
So what do they
in
believe?
Fact, they believe
America, government, this globalist utopia, European Union?
They believe we have to pay for our sins, our crimes against humanity, our colonial past. We have to pay. And if it means a bunch of Americans have to die because of this, well, so be it. I really believe they think that people like you and myself and millions of Americans who believe in borders and a national language, that we are far more frightening than an MS-13 gang member who literally decapitates people.
How do you, if you're advising President Trump and his campaign, they've attacked everybody around him, the media's declared war on him.
Yeah.
How do you advise him to deal with this?
I think he has to stay really firm in his resolve to do what he pledged he was going to do. We cannot allow Congress to slow walk major pieces of legislation. They have to get the Obamacare repeal and replace done. They cannot delay that, because then, Sean, as you know, that might delay tax reform because of the way the two pieces of legislation are set up. He has to move forward on that. The border is part of it. Enforcement is part of it. He's doing what he said he was going to do.
Do you believe Ryan's timetable, when I interviewed him the other night, 200 days, does it?
I think they have to move faster than that. I think you're giving the left a lot of running room to create more chaos, disrupt the process, and make the nation ungovernable. I think you have to move fast but smartly.
Laura, always good to see you. Thank you.
Good to see you, Sean.
Appreciate it. Welcome back to Hannity. So after weeks of being called out by President Trump, well, some whiny members of the mainstream media, they're complaining that the president's words could actually lead to physical violence against them. Watch this.
I think most of the people at this table were alive and politically conscious at the time of the Oklahoma City bombings. And every time that Donald Trump uses this kind of language, I always worry that it's an incitement.
I am worried. I'm worried because somebody who's deranged is going to hear this kind of language and take action against a journalist, either at a rally or in some more private setting.
I said this during the campaign. It's going to happen. And I don't want it to happen.
That's what you mean by somebody's going to get hurt.
Somebody's going to get hurt. It's just a question of time, because just like in every other dynamic in life, if you take somebody who's got a legitimate reason to be upset in the first place and you pump them up and it starts to become a call to action, somebody's going to get hurt.
Yeah, will the president get hurt when you call him a dictator, a liar, a racist, sexist, misogynist, homophobe, xenophobe? You know, is that the same thing? Now, Chris Cuomo and others lecture us about public discourse and the incitement of violence. Where was my friend Chris when his colleague Van Jones called Trump's victory a white lash, insinuating all his supporters are racist. Now, of course, this is the same Chris Cuomo who also had to apologize for making this kind of bad comparison.
I see being called fake news as the equivalent of the N-word for journalists, the equivalent of calling an Italian any of the ugly words that people have for that ethnicity.
Now, let's not forget about the lack of concern from Cuomo and others in the media that are now whining when President Trump was literally compared to the world's most evil dictator. Perhaps they forgot this.
This is what got you wound up on the Philadelphia Inquirer front page, like Hitler. They got you in a personage of Hitler right now, a characterization of that.
Even Trump himself seems to be encouraging the comparison. Look at this photo from a recent rally. Okay?
When he said today, America first, it was not just the racial, I should say racial, the Hitlerian background to it.
If you call the president a Nazi or compare him to Hitler, are you inciting violence against him? Now, I'm going to be the first to tell you a truth that nobody in the media will ever tell you. They're all overpaid, myself included. They're not struggling to pay their mortgages like I did for 2 decades of my life and put food on the table like so many of you Americans working so hard for so little and the government taking more and more every day. So let me be clear. To the whiny crybaby snowflakes in the liberal alt-left media that are worried about their safety, how about you lead by example and maybe stop calling the president and comparing him to Hitler? Let's start there. Joining us now, former Trump campaign manager, partner at Avenue Strategies, Corey Lewandowski. New York City independent mayoral candidate Bo Dietl is with us. Corey, is there any name Trump hasn't been called? Are they inciting violence against him, if we're going to use this ridiculous analogy of theirs?
Sean, it's amazing. It wasn't that long ago, and you're exactly right. With all the things that they've said about this president, about him as a candidate, all the pejorative statements they have made with absolutely no accountability, the fake news stories on the front page of the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, time and time and time again, with absolutely no accountability. This is the problem with the media. You finally have a president who not only has the ability to hit back, but will hit back, who will call people out when they're wrong. No president has ever been willing to take on the fourth estate, the media, because they've been so afraid. He is willing to, and he is fighting for the American people. And if you look at the Fox poll, the American people believe that Donald Trump gives them the accurate information more so than the mainstream media does. That's why he's going to be successful.
Let me go to T. Beckett Adams, and this is an important piece I'm going to put up there. He actually wrote a piece in the Washington Free Beacon. Bo, I'll get you to respond to this, and while you answer this question, it shows how often the media got it wrong. We'll just keep slowly rolling this so our audience can read it as you respond. Look at this list. It goes on forever, how wrong the media has been about Trump. What's your reaction?
You know, and it just jumps out to me is we're talking about seeing these 600 people rounded up. During the Obama administration, the people don't realize 2.5 million people were deported. Immigrants were deported out of the United States. Also, the fact they're worried about violence. I like Chris Cuomo. I like his father, Mario, very much, and Andrew. But I'm going to tell you something now. Chris, the only violence that I see is when I was at the inauguration, when people were burning cars, breaking women, throwing urine on people, also in Berkeley, busting up things, setting fire. These are the Soros people that are out there. Their organized effort to cause violence and crime.
Okay, they've done and said horrible things about him. He hasn't said, you know, if something, God forbid, happens to any American president, are words responsible or the people that do violent
Look,
acts
I'm starting to see, you know, usually the liberal peoples are usually the people that wouldn't fight normally. Now it seems as though the ultra-liberals are the ones that are getting into people's faces and starting physical altercations. It's like kind of reversing now. The true fact of the matter is this George Soros anarchists that are out there that are beating people, upsetting fires, torching things. That's where the violence is.
Corey, we saw that violence. You were in Chicago. I was live that night when all that violence broke out and Donald Trump canceled the rally there.
That's right, Sean. Yeah, I was there with at that time candidate Trump and now President Trump. We were sitting in the hotel room and you know, we were supposed to have a big rally in Chicago and we couldn't do that because of all the chaos and the violence. And look, there's no place for that, to be candid. There is a place for peaceful protests. And you know, I happened to be in Chicago last week, and gave a speech there with Bob Costa from the Washington Post and had a couple hundred protesters. It was done peacefully, and nobody's complaining about that. But when it turns violent is where it goes over the line. And for these people who have been so egregious about the things that they've said about the president, to not hold themselves accountable, I think is really the hypocrisy.
All right, guys, good to see you. Good luck in your independent run. Good to see you, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, Corey.
Thank you.
I'm calling you Mr. Mayor already because you could beat de Blasio, Comrade de Blasio. Coming up, liberal snowflakes, they're at it again. They can't stop protesting Donald Trump all across the country. Herman Cain will weigh in. That's straight ahead. Welcome back to Hannity. So the behavior from the alt-radical left is becoming even more alarming. Yesterday, Not My President rallies were held in various cities all across the country. And in Portland, Oregon, 13 people were arrested as anti-democratic agitators spilled into the streets, blocked traffic. Former DNC chair Howard Dean gave this reason for why he thinks liberal snowflakes continue to protest. Take a look.
I'm betting what happens is these young people have been traumatized by Trump's election because it was essentially a reneging on every single value that somebody in this country under 35 has. They were shocked. I think they're coming out in 2018,
but you have to look
which
at
they did not do in 2014.
And you also
Traumatized little snowflakes here with reaction. Fox News contributor, former presidential candidate 999 Herman Cain. Sir, how are you?
I'm great, Sean. Thank you.
Really, are we going to now start comparing if you lost the election to what, post-traumatic stress disorder, that they're traumatized? Is this where we're headed with this here?
No, I don't think so. Look, those protests on President's Day, I think they did not succeed in changing anybody's minds. In fact, I believe that the protests encouraged conservatives and Republicans to stay the course. The RNC just announced that for the month of January, it had a record fundraising month.
Yep.
Now, people wouldn't be giving money like that to the RNC if they didn't believe in, one, President Trump's agenda, the accomplishments he's made in 1 month and 1 day. That wouldn't be happening. What I think that the protesters are doing, they are pitching their temper tantrum thinking that it's going to endear some support from some people that really are not paying attention because they know what's going on. And one other thing, Howard Dean talk about, Hillary Clinton losing and Donald Trump winning, that they are traumatized. No. Not the ones that are being paid to be there. They are not traumatized.
No.
They will continue to protest until the money runs out.
Ooh,
that's what's going on.
Good point. Follow the money, Herman. All right.
Follow the money.
We've instituted both on my radio show and on this show a new segment, and it's called Holding Them Accountable.
Yes.
So I've been upset the Republicans have been too slow. They're not keeping up with the speed of Trump. And I went and I interviewed the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. I don't know if you saw the interview, but he said he supports the entire Trump agenda, and legislatively, everything will be done in 200 days. Are you confident? Do you think that's true? Is that a good time frame for you?
I believe that most of the major initiatives will be introduced and put on the table in that time frame. Now, the reason that they may not get it across the finish line is because of, as you know, political headwinds. That's the part. Now, political headwinds.
I don't want any excuses, Herman. I don't want to hear it.
The political headwinds aren't just coming from Democrats. Some of it is coming from Republicans.
Any Republican that doesn't support it, they need to go home.
That's who we have to keep their feet to the fire.
They're not going to support this agenda.
And all of them
they
have
asked
to keep
for this.
Their feet to the fire. Yes, they asked for it.
The House, the Senate, and they tried to sabotage Trump. Now he won. He's running on a conservative agenda. Either support him or get out of the way.
Exactly. Support him or get out of the way. And I happen to believe that, but the American people have got to speak up. Conservatives and Republicans have got to let their conservative and Republican representatives and senators know that they are paying attention. That way, Paul Ryan's 200 days would be realistic.
All right, Herman, good to see you, my friend. Thank you.
The anti-Semitic threats targeting our Jewish community and